Okay, so let's move on and tackle this building 2. And the reason why I suggest doing the second building before the first building is because this is a little bit easier. The shading and the look dev for the main building is a little bit more advanced. There's sort of lots of different layers on top of one another, and this is reasonably straightforward and it looks great. So let's just take a look at the building that we're going to be doing. So it's here. So it's fairly straightforward. We're mainly relying on one texture for this, more or less, which is just a plaster, like a damaged plaster texture. And just be mindful of the concept. So we're going to be trying to match those colors. So with that said, let's get started. We'll also turn off the floor, all of this stuff. Turn it all off. There you go. Be gone. Nice. So we'll look through the look dev cam, zoom out, and we'll sort of do it from, oh, it looks like we still got some things there. Yeah, actually, I think we'll look from sort of this a similar angle to where the camera's at. Click on the building, so S for selection mode. Click on the building, and we'll drop down another material network. Although I'm sure by now you guys already know this. RS material is orange plaster, not spelled orange, orange. RS texture, plug him in, and we're going to browse for textures, plaster, P for plaster, Megascans. And I think it's this one, GWO, I think. Should be pink, and we'll need to do a little bit of a hue shift. Yeah, this is the one. So we're going to need to do a slight hue shift to make it orange. And we'll just call this building 2 out. Let's apply that to the building. There you go. And we'll change this from main to just matte. Let's fire him up. Looking cool already. And we haven't really done anything, which is awesome. So let's jump in. Boom, copy, paste, copy, paste. Replace it with the roughness. In she goes. RS norm map. Load that in. Into the bump map slot. Into the roughness slot. Let's rename those files. Yeah, it's standing out quite nicely already, so yeah, it's looking right there. Maybe just a little bit less. I think that's maybe just a bit over the top. We don't want it to feel like the entire building is crumbling, so let's view the roughness map. Make sure we've got enough contrast in there. It kind of looks like there's not. So RS change range. Refresh the render. Turn off bucket rendering. Increase that a little bit. It's being a little bit slow right now on my computer. I'm not sure why. Just want to get some areas that are just got these little black areas. That's just going to really make the reflection pop a bit better. And we'll just do this. It's looking pretty good. Let's turn it at an angle, see how we're doing from sort of this angle here. This is the angle that we're going to be viewing from. Just going to refresh the render. Oh, it's not looking too bad. Looks pretty good. Let's push this towards the orange color that we need. So don't guess it. Drop down the concept image, plop him in there, and zoom in. Whilst we've got the color correction node selected, let's hue shift him. Do it in one area. Turn the saturation up. Oh, there you go. That was a pretty lucky guess. So I think that's not far off actually. Just having a little bit of a slide around here. And the only issue that we've got now is that we've hue shifted the concrete as well. So if I turn that back to 0, you can see the concrete is still kind of like a grayish browny color. So if let's drop that back to 1, and I'm just going to take a snapshot so you can see that when we're hue shifting like everything. And we don't want that. We want the painted plaster to be hue shifted, but not that concrete. So what we can do is use the roughness map. Let's just grab, yeah, we'll chuck a RS change range afterwards and plug this into here. We want to select all those little concrete patches. So they're kind of like there, just so we can get them. There you go. Get that contrast. Almost there. Almost there, guys. Here you go. Just drop that down until we got that. Yeah, just so we're selecting the concrete there. And what we need to do now is drop down an RS invert to invert those values. Like that. And instead of using an RS color correction node, we can use an RS, I think it's called a color mix, is it color mix? And then we have a mix amount. So we can use the mask that we just generated from the roughness map in the mix amount. So we'll plug this in. So we'll say input 1, and then we're going to mix in input 2. So we'll use an RS color constant for this. The color you can grab is like the orange color in here. So that's a really neat way of matching concepts and the color of them. So you stick that up to like here, stick that up a little bit. something around that color. Let's plug in, we don't actually need this invert anymore. Delete it because we just need, so wherever there's white, sorry, will be, actually we do need that. Okay, so let's take back what I just said. Sometimes I've got to test things first before I, so there you go. So we've color corrected everything but that. There also might be another node called color composite, I think. But that's not going to give us the correct result there. We also need to be able to define the amount that's mixed in here. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this. We need to figure out another way of doing it. So obviously I bump into these problems a fair amount, and I sit here for a couple minutes just trying to figure that out, so I'll be right back. Okay, so this is the node I was after. It was an RS color layer. So let's plug in the texture into the base color. Layer on top is, let's grab that color constant, select like the orange color, somewhere around there. The mask will be the one we generated, and we'll plug this into here so we can view what we're doing. So we got this, and then we can say average. There you go. Then you can have a mess around with the different effects here, but this is super useful, this node. So you can see there's nothing wrong with, with sitting there just trying to work things out. I get stuck as well. I don't always have the answers, so it does take a little bit of time just to figure out how to do things. So let's plug this into the diffuse color slot. Get rid of that RS color correct node. Looks like we're still lacking the saturation there, so let's boost him up. Let's go to that and pump a tiny bit more red in, I think. Actually less red. Yeah, I think average does work. Let's try dropping down RS color correct to increase the saturation. We could do it here, but I want to push it even further, so let's try 1.2. There you go, so this is working. Let's take a look at the color again. 1.1. I think this is too far off. Yeah, I think that's actually a good starting point. I think that's looking alright. It's looking a bit on the flat side, so what we need to do is have a little mess around with our roughness map here. It's not looking too great, so there's too much white, and wherever there's 100% white, we're getting a lot of roughness. So we need to introduce some more black values. So we can push that up just a touch there. Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see if that works. And yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. Let's also turn down that normal map. It's kind of tripping me out a little bit. Yeah, it's looking pretty cool. Yeah, nice. Let's also, I think, add in the displacement map as well. Let's bring him in. RS displacement map. Remember to always change the new range min and new range max. So what we're saying is that 50% grey goes nowhere and 0 goes in, white is out. Let's plug him in. Let's take a snapshot so we can see what this looks like. We will enable tessellation. We don't need more than 4 in this on this occasion because we're quite far away from the camera, so we're probably not going to see all that detail. Refresh the render. Yeah, we've got a bit more going on here now. Which looks kind of cool. Just pulling out more details. Yeah, I'm kind of liking that. It's looking kind of cool. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. We may have to increase the roughness just a touch, but that can happen when we're sort of pulling the scene together. I'm going to drop this down by 50%. I think it's just a touch too much. I just don't like it when the building starts to sort of what looks like it's wobbling. Like it looks like jelly, you know, that's not good. You want to push your textures, you want to push your normal maps, you want to push your displacement maps, but you don't want to push them so far to the point where they're kind of breaking the geometry, you know. I think that's looking cool. We need to add some dirt, so there's no way I'm going to be recreating that. Let's just pinch it from here. Back into building 2, paste him in, drop down a material blender. Oh, not that. Material blender. Bam, bam. In she goes. Here you go. See how we're looking there. We're most probably going to have to adjust the curvature. Yeah, I think we will. So we will take all of this from here. It's actually not looking too bad. It looks kind of good. So I think it's just a case of pumping this up to like 20 or something. And maybe lift this up to 0.1. Just so we're getting the edge where, like on the edges. This is not looking right either. I think we'll take the triplanar off. We have UVs for this building, so we don't need triplanar. That's looking nice. We can maybe just drop this down 0.05 to bring back a little bit more detail. It's looking decent. Plug that back in, see how we're looking. Still not strong enough. I want this to be able to stand out a little bit better. 50. Still not seeing it. And it would help if I actually plugged in the material blender. Sorry, it's getting late in the day. There you go. Right, now this is definitely going to stand out. Just going to refresh that, make sure it's updating. Still not super obvious. Just going to move this out so it's a little bit more readable here, so I can see what's going on. Okay, that's looking cool. We've got this. Let's plug him back in. We'll see what's happening here. Yeah, that's fine. Let's try increasing the radius on both of these. So let's double it. Should be a bit stronger now. See how that's looking. And you can see why it's so advantageous to work with one asset. It's so quick. Never ever load all the assets together at the same time. You're just screwing yourselves over. You know, I used to work like that a lot, and it used to really take a long time. I'd be waiting, you know, if I was doing this process just to wait for one update, like the dirt, I'd be waiting like a minute and a half before the scene, you know, to get the scene loaded and rendered, and then I'd make another change. This way it's more or less instant, so always separate it, break it down to one asset. This still seems insanely dark to me. I'm not sure if there's something weird going on here. I mean, you can kind of see it here, it's picking up. Let's try increasing this to 0.01. Just want to get a little bit more there. Yeah, there you go, that's a little bit better. We could try 0.02. Yeah, that's looking kind of cool. And then we can just drop this back to a more reasonable, more sensible size. Just going to go up on this to 0.01. That was just a little bit too far. Maybe up to 3. Yeah, that's looking better. It's looking cool. And let's also mix in, so we'll take this same roughness map, so the grunge, and we just want to add in the white values from this grunge to create like a general, sort of like a generalized dirt over the entire surface. And there's a reason, you know, if you watched Create an Atmospheric Environment, you're probably thinking, oh well, why don't you just use procedural methods, just use like an RS noise. And the reason I don't use it in this case is because it looks very uniform, it looks procedural, and we don't really want that. You know, we sort of always want a nice custom look. So if you're sort of using, you know, even RS noises to break up the pattern in curvatures, it's still going to look a little bit procedural, which is why I use actual texture maps that have been scanned in. Just looks that little bit more organic. So I'm just increasing the contrast on there. So you can see we're getting a little bit of dirt there, and this looks like it's tiled too much, so I'll drop this back down. There you go, starting to get some interesting patterns on the building now. Yeah, nice. Let's boost this up, I just want to see what it's doing. So yeah, that's looking nice. Let's put it to 2, see how he's looking. Yeah, it's looking cool. 1.5. Yeah, nice. I'm liking that. So I'm just going to stop the render. Let's turn all the assets on now again, and if I can find them. So we got the chair cushions, table flower, plant pot. We've got the table wood base. We have all the chair parts, tablecloth, the floor, should have the plant pots around here somewhere. There you go. So select those, turn them on, and we are missing the pillar wall. Let's look from the render cam, type in pillar wall, turn him on. There you go. Let's hit render. Stop that a moment. Select the render cam. Hit play. Hit save, just in case if it crashes. Getting some interesting detail here. Yeah, it's looking kind of cool. Drop back this dirt, I think, but I think it's not looking too bad. We're getting some nice sort of dirty reflection here, which is nice. So you can see the nice breakup in roughness, and that's because we increased the contrast in the roughness maps. That's really helping it. So let's look back at the reference. I think the colors are similar. I think that's looking cool, and also this is going to be sort of in shade when we add the other building in, so that's going to add another level to it. Yeah, I think that's really coming along. Nice. So the next building is the main building, and I've added the materials in here for you guys to check out. It's quite a big network, but it's not actually doing as much as it looks like. So, you know, there's like 7 different layers here, and these concrete sections, they don't actually look that great. They look quite flat, particularly in this lighting without the sunlight. But when they're sort of covered behind, you know, this pillar and the sunlight's hitting them, you know, you start to see the cracks and they start to stand out a lot more. Also as well, if you sort of check this out based on that render, this is sort of underneath this building trim, so it looks a little bit weird here. You guys can dive in, take a look at this. These were done, so these little concrete patches were done using just some masks. So from Megascans, they're just decals. So let's just drop that down for a moment. Preview one. So they look like this. So you just basically scale them down and then just use an RS add, and you just keep adding them together. So add them together, offset them on the texture, rotate them, add another one in, for example. So here we've got like 4 of them. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 down here. So it's pretty straightforward. I ended up blending between, so I used let's see if I can find it. So I used a displacement blender. So blending different displacements together using masks. And this last one, the concrete, is using those decal masks which were added together. So it's not actually that complicated. It just looks more complicated than it is. So I'll let you guys have a mess around with that and figure it out. But the same principles really apply to this. You know, I didn't really do anything too significant here. I may have layered up some more textures just to get like sort of dirtier patches, but very similar techniques to here.